This presentation will attempt to solve what will happen with data protection post-Brexit. First, we need to understand exactly what the problem is. The main piece of EU data protection law is the 1995 Data Protection Directive, and more recently the 2016 General Data Protection Regulation, commonly known as GDPR. These acts provide the legal framework for data protection within the UK. So who's affected? Well, GDPR applies to all EU-registered organisations and any organisation processing any EU citizens' personal data. Data breach fines can be up to €20 million, or the equivalent to 4% of an organisation's worldwide turnover. GDPR states many rights of citizens, including you must get consent to collect data on an individual. Everyone has the right to access and rectify data concerning themselves, as well as the right to be forgotten. These rights are controlled by an independent authority known as data protection authorities. Following Brexit, the UK could be regarded as a third country. GDPR currently allows the transfer of data within the EU, but not to third countries. To keep the free flow of data, as the government would like, the UK would need to meet adequacy standards set out by the EU. The EU Commission have clearly stated they will not commence adequacy processes until the UK has left the EU and become an independent third country, leaving the UK in an uncertain position about how to prepare for this. So why is this problem important? Well, socially, data protection is regarded as an important concern as it relates directly to privacy and affects our everyday lives. Recently, the power of data has increased massively, and thus the government and companies are continually spending more and more on security protections, making it a very costly problem. Consequently, solving data protection post-Brexit and ensuring a secure passage for data is a British government priority. So, on to the game. Why in particular did I pick this game? Well, in Crocco, Coleman and Polford's 2016 paper, they explained that coordination is a fundamental form of social interaction, making coordination ideally suited to our problem. Of particular interest is the concept of salience. Thomas Schelling demonstrated this concept with individuals meeting in New York City. Without communication, but by using the focal point principle, these individuals were able to meet in New York City without communicating. Since in the situation of GDPR, there are various options, all with equivalent monetary payoffs, but only one that seems to both parties the obvious option, the focal principle can be used to solve this game. So in this game there are two groups of players, the government and the rest of Parliament. There are also three options for the game. The first option is to keep GDPR as set out by the EU. This must be incorporated into the EU withdrawal agreement. This in itself is risky, as if not improved by the EU, organisations will be unprepared and may be unable to manage data efficiently. The second option is no more GDPR, to simply rely on the Data Protection Act 2018, which currently works alongside the current GDPR regulation. This seems undesirable as it leaves consumers less protected. Meanwhile, firms must still comply to the current GDPR regulations for any EU citizens' data, potentially causing a lot of confusion. And then the third option is to create a new set of independent regulation. This would have to be aligned closely to the EU's GDPR and sit alongside the 2018 Data Protection Act. California have recently done something similar in July 2018, and this has been quite successful. We must ensure that this protection meets the adequacy criteria of the EU. So, what's the solution to our game? Well, for the government, the salient option would appear to be to create a set of independent regulation. It enables a clear separation between themselves and the EU while still maximising the possibility of unhindered flow of data between the UK and the EU. For Parliament, the option of creating an independent set of regulation also appears to be the most salient, since it provides a platform to influence data protection for all parties. Thus, by coordination, and in particular the focal point principle, they can reach an equilibrium, solving our problem. So what are the lessons learned from this solution? Well, data protection is an issue that can be resolved quite simply between the government and Parliament. Both are likely to regard the create a new policy option as a standout choice. This could enable the government to create a committee in advance of Brexit that creates this new legislation. This will likely increase stability by speeding up the adequacy protocol.